Last week, the news came out, and it does appear that it is now official. President Goodluck Jonathan will contest the 2027 elections. Whether he will contest on the platform of the ADC or the PDP is not yet known. But the reality is that those who are threatening the fact that he is coming back to contest are already coming out with reasons why he should be disqualified or is not qualified to contest. And also, there are those who are now bringing up what they think his weaknesses that should make him not to contest the election. But how will the situation look like if President Goodluck Jonathan actually enters the race? Who is going to benefit or lose by his contesting the elections in 2027? My name is Rimamnde Shawulu. This is The Other Side. In the last cycle of election, rumors circulated that President Goodluck Jonathan will be contesting the 2023 elections. As a matter of fact, people brought up the issue as to whether he is qualified to contest or not. And then it came out he did not contest, in spite of the fact that someone close to him had gone ahead to buy a form from the All Progressive Congress. This did not make him to come out to announce that he was going to contest the elections. His wife said not long ago that he was not going to contest the elections. And suddenly, the rumors came out that he had agreed to contest the elections. So what has changed? And what is the impact of his contesting the 2027 elections? Let's take a look at what happened in 2015. In 2015, President Goodluck Jonathan faced a lot of problems in his bid to be re-elected as president of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. His godfather, people say, President Olusegun Obasanjo, whom he called a father, was so angry with him that he tore his PDP membership card. He wrote an 18-page open letter accusing Jonathan of failing in leadership. And then he wrote a second letter and decided to leave the PDP. That was not all. The PDP entered into some serious internal problems. Some of the internal problems, of course, were political problems. There were 5 governors who defected from the party. The former Vice President Atiku Abubakar, who had contested nomination with him in 2011, also decided to leave the party. They formed what they call the NPDP and teamed up with the party that was formed and led by late President Muhammadu Buhari and the ACN of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu to form what they call the APC coalition. And the APC coalition successfully defeated President Goodluck Jonathan. President Goodluck Jonathan was not helped by the security problems that engulf the Northeast. And of course, we had the famous kidnap of school children from Chibok. These young women that were kidnapped by the Boko Haram became a very sore point against President Goodluck Jonathan in the whole world. Governments, first ladies, and everywhere, people accused President Goodluck Jonathan of not being effective and that he did not take the security situation seriously. And that is why Boko Haram expanded and actually took over several local government areas in Borno State. Of course, there were the issues of corruption, cronyism, and allegation that he had given so much political appointments to his people in the Niger Delta. Then came the famous or infamous accusation by the former governor of Central Bank, Sanusi Lamido Sanusi, who accused President Jonathan of allowing over $20 billion to be stolen from the oil funds that were supposed to be remitted to Nigeria. And there was the allegation that President Goodluck Jonathan was not firm enough in the way he handled the affairs of the state. People looked at the strong hands of President Olusegun Obasanjo, who suspended governors from office and said President Goodluck Jonathan was weak. As a matter of fact, while President Obasanjo suspended the governors of Ekiti State, Ayo Fayose, and Governor of Plateau State, Joshua Darie, from office, as a result of the imposition of a state of emergency, President Goodluck Jonathan, when he imposed a state of emergency on the 3 states of Northeast, he did not suspend the governors from office. He left them to continue to work because it was his view that the Constitution did not provide that a governor should be suspended from his office. All these were regarded as weaknesses, and the electoral reform that President Goodluck Jonathan embarked upon now came to be used against him. While the card reader who did not work in the north and people were allowed to vote in areas that were hostile to President Goodluck Jonathan without card readers. In places that President Jonathan was strong, card readers were enforced, and this ensured that he lost the elections. Of course, 10 years down the line, a lot of things have changed, and the perception about President Goodluck Jonathan have also changed. In the first place, on the claims that President Goodluck Jonathan was not firm on security matters, and that is why security had taken over 3 local governments of Borno State. Nigerians now know, and many people have come to speak about the fact that after President Goodluck Jonathan left, the strong man, President Muhammadu Buhari, a former military head of state who was expected to rein in the Boko Haram and ensure that insurgency was defeated in Nigeria, did not do much. As a matter of fact, rather than decrease, the activities of non-state actors of insurgency expanded. From the 3 local governments that were controlled by Boko Haram in 2014, 2015, so today, nobody knows the number of local governments that are under the control of these non-state actors. But it is clear, if you look at the statistics that are coming out from multilateral organizations and security groups around the world, it is obvious. And some people who look at President Goodluck Jonathan will remember that under his regime, you could travel to Kaduna, you could travel to Sokoto, you could do your business in Katsina, and nothing will happen to you. Today, states like Kebbi, Sokoto, Zamfara, Plateau, Kaduna, Taraba, and many more states, including states in the south, reeling from severe security challenges that have increased and induced hunger and food shortages in Nigeria. And in terms of the economy, Nigeria's economy was rebased, and Nigeria was regarded as the biggest economy in Africa. Today, Nigeria is no longer the biggest economy in Africa. Today, Nigeria's basic vital indices show a downward trend. Interestingly, some of the things that President Goodluck Jonathan did that led to his downfall included the withdrawal of fuel subsidy. Of course, the current president has embarked on that, and the president was among those who held demonstrations around the country wanting President Goodluck Jonathan to leave office because petroleum prices had increased. While President Goodluck Jonathan was in office, the retail price of petrol in Nigeria was, I think, about 140 naira. Today, the same fuel goes for over 1,000 naira. While he was leaving office, you could get $1 on the streets of Nigeria at 190 naira. Today, $1 on the street of Nigeria is 1,500 naira. These, of course, are issues which those who pleaded with Jonathan to come back may have in mind when they said he was going to come back to salvage the country. President Goodluck Jonathan coming back to office would bring about certain issues that will need to be answered by all factions in Nigeria of Nigeria's political elites. In the first place, one of the issues that is touted about rotation, the rotation calculation, that power should shift between North and South. And the PDP members who have pledged their support to President Bola Ahmed Tinubu to the effect that he comes from the South and that according to them it is time for the South to continue to rule in Nigeria. The question I asked before, which is still relevant today, what will they do now that their party is fielding President Goodluck Jonathan, who is also from the South? In terms of how many years the sections of the South have ruled, like I said before, the Southeast has ruled 0 in Nigeria, both before the rotation started in 1999 and after the rotation. Even in the past, they did not. The Southwest, where President Bola Ahmed Tinubu comes from, has ruled Nigeria for 8 years, and now another 4 years by President Bola Ahmed Tinubu. The South with President Goodluck Jonathan has ruled for 5 years, 5.5 years or thereabout. And so what is the justice there now? What compromise will the South have? Of course, with this situation, it is obvious that the South campaign to consolidate Southern votes for one candidate may not be possible because there is a strong candidate from the South who was shortchanged. And in the shortchange that happened, it is obvious that it may not have succeeded without other people from other sections of the South working to ensure that a Southerner was removed from office. Of course, I'm talking about people like Governor Rotimi Amechi, who was among those that were on the forefront of ensuring that President Goodluck Jonathan lost the election in 2015. So what is he going to say now? Will he also follow the argument of power should go to the South? Or should it follow the argument that, well, to those who have, more should be given to them? Since the Southwest has had many more years, it should continue to have, or it should go to those that have not had before. There are those who have brought up the issue of the eligibility of President Goodluck Jonathan, whether the amendment that was done by the 8th National Assembly and assented to by President Muhammadu Buhari in 2018 to the effect that if you became president to complete somebody's tenure, you are only entitled to contest to 1 more year and no more. Will that amendment, which was done, affect President Goodluck Jonathan? Well, lawyers are arguing it, and we do know that those who do not want President Goodluck Jonathan to contest, among the people or the politicians in ADC and in APC will bring up that matter. But some lawyers have said that those issues have been settled up to Supreme Court, and you cannot make a law that has retroactive effect. That was actually what President Muhammadu Buhari did when he became military head of state in 1984, when he decided to use a law that he had just enacted to execute drug dealers who committed the crime before the law came into effect. Now, the question to ask is, what will be the impact of President Goodluck Jonathan agreeing to contest election? One straight thing that we do know from the plethora, from the numerous publications, radio talks, and that are directed at the way of President Goodluck Jonathan is that it has brought in some confusion into the political sphere. Of course, the fact of the matter is that whether anybody likes it or not, there are people who believe that Nigeria was demonstrably far better than it is now, that the last 10 years have brought Nigeria down. And among these are the numerous poor people, street urchins in several parts of northern Nigeria who still remember with nostalgia the fact that they could buy a bag of rice for 6,000 to 8,000 naira, the fact that they could have things that they no longer have access to. And many of them regretted donating the money they made from shiny shoes or selling water to the campaign of President Muhammadu Buhari. They were regretting giving their small money to President Muhammadu Buhari because they believed that Buhari had made their life bitter and worse than he made them. And so what is going to be the challenge? What do you think will happen? Will the people who said they want the presidency to continue to remain in the South, I'm talking about those in the PDP, now remain in the PDP, that President Goodluck Jonathan, a Southerner, has decided to throw in his hat into the ring? Will the people who left the PDP to the ADC because they felt that the PDP will not be able to get its acts right, now come back to the PDP with President Goodluck Jonathan, who evidently has goodwill today within and outside Nigeria, come back to the party to campaign, or they will also decide to come up with a different candidate? And what happens if the ADC refuses and goes ahead to field a candidate, having one candidate from ADC, probably Peter Obi or Vice President Atiku Abubakar, President Goodluck Jonathan, and President Bola Ahmed Tinubu? What is going to be the result? What will be the result of a four-way campaign, a four-way fight in 2027? Some people believe that if it is a four-way, or three-way fight, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu will carry the day again. Is that what is going to happen? Let me have your thoughts, as this week promises to be an interesting week when we hear more about President Goodluck Jonathan deciding to contest the election. My name is Rimamnde Shawulu. This is The Other Side.